Well, before I talk about sleep deprivation, and I noticed I had a little resistance to talk about it because I had some really bad insomnia recently, and it was like, well, if I talk about it, maybe it'll happen again. But then I thought, well, probably more likely that if I don't talk about it, it'll happen again. But, first of all, I'm trying out a new background. That's right, just painted it. I hope it remains shiny when it dries fully. Let me see. Yeah, it's still pretty wet. I did it a couple hours ago. And the way that happened was, well, I thought for a while I'd like to do some kind of original background with paint, but couldn't really decide on what it wanted it to look like. So today, one of the things I did earlier was take my car for a drive with the top down to see if it would, I did a repair job on a couple cuts to the roof, the fabric, and I wanted to see how it would hold up to the roof being down. And the two patches stayed on fine. Duct tape and super glue did the trick. But some of the paint came off one of them, so I got out some acrylics that I'd purchased recently, and when I put the cap back on, one of them, the blue and the black I was using to match my convertible top, I broke the cap on one. I screwed it on too tight and the plastic part broke off. So I thought, well, that's a bummer. But then I thought, well, you know, there's two yellows in this pack of acrylics. Yellow and yellow ochre. So I decided whichever one had the cleanest top, cleanest cap on the inside, was what I'd use. And it was this one. It was yellow ochre, I believe. And so I used that on the blue, and I thought, I'm just going to use up all this paint from this little tube. It was about this long, this thin, on this fabric. And I was happy with how it turned out, and it was neat because I'd had the thought earlier of wanting to do that today, and the accident of the blue cap breaking off led me to thinking, well, instead of using a paintbrush and multiple colors, just use one color on this fabric here and, you know, go for it. So, that's how this came about. One thing leads to another. Sleep deprivation. So, the other night, I'm watching Big Man Japan on Roku. Is a service that streamlines, it's a box, not a service, that streamlines Netflix movies onto TV. It's a Japanese film. Big Man Japan is a superhero, but he's not well liked, and it was really good and really interesting until the last 5 to 10 minutes. I've heard a lot of people say this movie had a bad ending. I never usually agree. I'm usually easy to please when it comes to most entertainment. But if I make it that far in the film, I'm going to like the ending. But this turned annoying, and I won't say how, but if you ever watch it, see if you find the ending annoying. Maybe it's cool in Japan. It has some, I think, iconic references that they might enjoy, but I thought it was horrible. It was weird to see a movie that was so cool, except for that part. So, but I didn't finish it that night. I started watching it, and I started feeling a little sleepy. I thought, okay, well, you know, it's 3:30 a.m., time to go to sleep. And then I laid there, some more, and I kept laying there, and then I thought, and this is, I think, what happens with insomnia stuff, the thought comes in, maybe I will not fall asleep, and then I started ruminating on that. And then I continued to lay there, and then, this was horrible, at 9 a.m., there was a basketball game on, and when it got to 8 a.m., after laying there for 4.5 hours, I thought maybe I could just, if I'm going to be up anyways, I'll just watch Michigan State college basketball game. And it was only on live, only on the internet. Usually I would record something like that on my DVR, but I thought, I'll follow it. And I actually made it to like 9 a.m. and 9:30, and then I'm watching the game on my internet connection, and then I'm thinking, God, I'm not going to make it through this whole game. This is crazy. Why did I start? But Fortunately, they started losing pretty badly, so I thought, they're not going to win anyways. But then it got to like 10 a.m. You know, I'm up all through the night, 10 a.m., and I try to sleep, and I'm doing all these things, like trying to get out of my head, trying to not think, trying breathing exercises, trying to put my awareness outside of my head. But the rawness just was so bad and so uncomfortable. And I started to feel a little nuts, you know, like just, God, I feel just so raw, just crazy. So I started thinking about calling somebody, but then I thought, no, they're probably not available, I'm not awake. And then I thought about just crying a little bit. I did some crying. So I kind of jump-started it with like, and then when I do this, then I go, the big breath. And I think that's one of the things about crying, that deep inhale. So I did that several times. And I think in a raw place, what was coming up for me was there was a situation where I was thinking of being insensitive, but I decided to be sensitive about it. And I feel ultimately that if insomnia is coming up and you get into that altered sleep deprivation state, because you can't run away from that. Even if, you know, you're like me and you try to eat well and exercise every day and just live a healthy life, you don't drink, you don't do drugs, you know, all that stuff like that. It's like sleep deprivation is one way you can like get put into an altered state and you don't have any control over it. So, but I think sometimes when it happens, something's coming up. So I'm going to try to keep in mind, if this happens again, what's coming up? What do I feel conflicted about but I've suppressed? What am I not sure about handling in a certain way, and how can I handle it in a way that helps me feel at peace? Because when I feel at peace, then I'll probably sleep.